Whoa, rah, rah, Johnny come marching home together. We're going to bomb this, bunker bomb, atomic bombs, blow, bomb. And then listen to what the idiots say on TV. Well, what about the Democrats? They only got a disapproval rating, and the hope ain't that we're in a state of collapse, and this and that, and let's have a panel discussion, and we're going to have a regression analysis, and we're going to do all that. And the fuck are you talking about? And don't worry about having a panel discussion about the Democrats. What are they going to do? Look at what's right in front of you. What's right in front of you. And we had the No Kings, which is the largest thing. And, maybe we should have no syphilis rallies.
So I think it is well established by now that the Democrat Party, both in its leadership structure and primary voter base, is comprised almost entirely of a bunch of senile, old, angry, bitter fools who are long past their prime. They still continue to cling to some glorious electoral victory that took place in the 1990s or 2000s, several decades ago, to justify why they continue to have good political instincts in 2025, despite the fact that people like this were utterly humiliated in the 2024 election. And even a lot of the younger Democrats want nothing to do with characters like this. But today, I truly believe the primary example of exactly what we're describing is not even Joe Biden, who tried to cling to power for far too long, but none other than Mr. James Carville, who has completely lost his mind, some would say years ago, but especially ever since the 2024 election, which completely broke his mind. And here today, you have him being forced to apologize to Melania Trump and the Trump family after he just straight up uttered BS that was not true, right, in regards to some of the Epstein stuff, and forced to backtrack. But guys, it's worth noting this story is far from alone because, as I said, Carville just increasingly continues to lose it. And I don't think this is just a matter of him being royally wrong about 2024. I think at the same time, his sort of a sense of losing his mind, it could be due to age, senility, whatever, but I also think you're watching a bitter old man who, kind of as a lot of old people are, but usually you try to help them through it, you don't try to put them on the internet and all this stuff, is kind of confused at the state of the modern world, right? He's not really understanding why his politics don't work anymore. He's bitter that even much of the Democrat Party and the New Guard is kind of rejecting people like this. And so it is truly an entertaining chronicle to witness. We'll tell you about this and more in today's video because some of you almost has to feel bad for this guy. Where are his kids? Is someone going to tell him, hey, grandpa, hey, get off the screen, stop talking nonsense, or you're going to get our family sued for a lot of money, which is exactly what happened here, but we'll get into it. First though, folks, do us a favor. As usual, if you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing here, guys, is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, so we'll get into this Melania Trump story in a second, but I think it is far from alone. It's worth noting here that when it comes to everything he's been spewing lately, James Carville is, again, losing it, living in a completely delusional fantasy world. And I think that's truly defined by comments he made earlier this week, where he went out and unironically stated, and I quote here, "I have never seen a political party that has more talent than the current Democrat Party."
I have never seen a political party at a point in my entire life in politics, which is like 50 years, that has more talent than the current Democratic Party.
Yeah, safe to say, cuckoo, the old guy is losing it. I think he's confused. I think he thinks this is the 2000s or 1990s or something. Where is the talent? What exactly are you talking about? Of course, one could argue it's a subjective opinion. Maybe I think there are a lot of political leaders in the Democrat Party that could take the future, but I would note here, there's sort of a way to objectively measure that, and that is the Democrat Party's approval rating, which we just got another poll out of CNBC this week showing very little has changed, 22% approval. That if a party truly had the most talent in history, according to James Carville, it's just full of these amazing, bright leaders of the future, that overall the party as an entity might have an approval rating that is better than 20%. They might not be in a situation where even massive swaths of their own voting base are pissed off at them. But of course, as I said, the guy is completely delusional, and we can truly say that as a fact. And yet another instance here, I believe this was actually just a couple days ago, you have James Carville now, out of desperation, out of just purely losing it, reacting to the recent Trump redistricting efforts and everything that's going on. Now, Trump today, as we covered in the last video, is announcing he may be looking at doing a brand new census to actually make the elections fair. James Carville is saying that, quote, "We will have to save democracy by further rigging the system," here, arguing that the next time Democrats hold power, they should unilaterally add Puerto Rico and D.C. as states. They may have to expand the courts. And, his reason for this is saying that the Democrat Party is under such threat. We're about to lose everything. Next time we hold power, we have to keep it basically permanently. And, of course, he's saying that because the Democrat Party is full of talent, right? Wait a minute. You don't understand what I'm saying? Wait a minute, if the party is full of talent and there's all these vibrant young people ready to take over and the party has a great future and they're going to be winning all the elections, then what would be the necessity of this? You see how that's completely inconsistent out of this desperation? But I think we know the truth. Nonetheless, take a listen to a royally hilarious meltdown by Mr. James Carville.
The Democrats talk about democracy, and you have these people, importance of democracy and preserving democracy and saving democracy. Well, the truth of the matter is, people are right when they say this democracy is really imperfect. And they're going to have to do, if the Democrats win the presidency, the Senate and the House in 2028, which is not impossible. I don't know if you say likely or possible. I don't know what word but it's certainly not impossible. They are just going to have to unilaterally add Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia states. They're going to have to, the Congress does give, the Constitution gives Congress power over federal elections. I don't think they can redistrict, but they're things they go do. They're going to have to do it. They're just going to have to do it. And they may have to expand the court to 13 members. Any of those things in isolation, I would be skeptical about. I would be cautious about. I would say, well, I don't know if that's the greatest idea in the world. You're opening Pandora's box, or all kinds of things. If you want to save democracy, I think you got to do all of those things, because we just are moving further and further away from being anything close to democracy. And I don't know if it's something that they should talk about during the campaign. I guess you probably would want to, because if you have a Democratic House, a Democratic Senator, and a Democratic President, they should do that on day one. 4 more United States senators, 4 more Supreme Court members, and some stringent national legislation on how you can do Congress. They could easily pass a law saying you can only redistrict once every 10.
Okay, old man. So I once again here pose the question that if the Democrat Party is so full of talent and has such a fantastic future, why exactly is it that you are worried, for instance, about winning 2026 or 2028, which you said openly? You're like, far from guaranteed. I can tell there's a sense of nervousness. But I thought your party's full of talent, right? And why are you so worried about the future that you and your senile, crazy brain are so desperate about essentially rigging the future if the Democrat Party is full of talent? I don't understand, right? But again, here you just see, a crazy, angry old man. Trump broke his brain. His lack of relevance, even in his own party, has broken his brain. It's kind of a sad chronicle to watch. And he just increasingly is saying more crazy and just ridiculous things. And nobody cares to stop him. Nobody's like, dude, you're past your prime, man. Give it up. Okay. Well, anyways, there you have it. Now let's get into today's main story, where in another recent podcast, James Carville made some ridiculous claims about the Trump family and its connection to Epstein. Not even saying necessarily directly about Donald, but saying here, making the accusation that Melania Trump was basically meeting with Jeffrey Epstein and, according to Carville, was a key figure in Epstein's trafficking operation. Now, this is just, I don't know where he got this from. The guy's a little senile. The guy's a little confused. Needless to say, this is completely unfounded, but nonetheless, take a listen to the clip here that Carville has now apparently deleted after he just blatantly defamed and slandered Melania. By the way, these are the people who accuse us of spreading misinformation online and whatnot.
To me, a key figure in this is Melania. Okay, and I think that's at the bottom of what they don't want to get out, because it was all modeling agencies. Remember, Trump had a modeling agency. Then Epstein got into the modeling agency, and Jean-Luc Bernal, the guy in Paris in the modeling agency, that hung himself. 2 out of the 3 people ended up hanging themselves. There is, I really believe this, Jack, there is a deep, dark secret somewhere underneath all this.
Yeah, so this tirade goes on for several minutes if you find the whole video, which is kind of hard because, again, he deleted it off the internet ever since. But he went on allegedly to go on and claim that the connections here were so close that apparently Donald and Melania Trump met each other via Jeffrey Epstein, which by all accounts is a complete lie. I don't know where people are getting this from. And this is a pretty recurring theme that you'll see, which is the Democrats right now, as sort of just a cheap political tactic or deflect blame or just find a weakness against Trump, are trying to make the Trump-Epstein connection way closer than it ever actually was. And so they're trying to, oh, they were the best of friends, all this stuff. And now you're seeing them get busted for their lies because, as it turns out, Trump and Epstein knew each other in the 90s and early 2000s. But we're never nearly as close as these people are trying to make it out to be, right? It's never, he met his wife through Epstein. There are all this close connections through the modeling agency, all this stuff. It's just completely made up, right? It was never true. So what has now happened since, guys, and this is why I say we know we're correct about this, is I don't know what happened privately behind the scenes. You'd have to assume that Melania or others were threatening defamation lawsuits because this was simply made up and not true, that James Carville has now been indeed forced to issue a formal apology and retraction for defaming First Lady Melania Trump by alleging that she was part of some type of international sex trafficking network. Here is the transcript from his recent podcast where he goes out and states, and I quote, "In last week's podcast, we spoke with Judd Legum." So I don't know why you're mentioning someone else even to kind of imply that it's the guest. No, you said it, Carville. No one else was talking about this. I don't think anyone actually has, even the Democrats. I've heard them try to say Trump is connected to Epstein. I've never heard them try to say Melania. You just made this up, right? After the episode, we received a letter from Melania Trump's lawyer. Okay, so they're saying here you're going to face a defamation suit, right? He took issue with our title of one of those YouTube videos from the episode and a couple of comments I made about the First Lady. Well, are you going to stay and fight it because you're correct? I guess not. Because what Carville here, under the threat of lawsuit, proceeded to do, and I quote, is that he took a look, quote, "We took a look at what they complained about, and we took down the video and edited those comments out of the episode. I also take back these statements and apologize," which is an admission that he was wrong. He was just simply engaged in ridiculous defamation. So there you have it. Now, keen eyes or ears are probably thinking this themselves already, but I have to point out, I do think there is a great irony that of all people who are standing up and having a big mouth and running that big mouth about this Epstein stuff is James Carville himself, because some people may know or may be familiar with the president that he is very famous for strategizing political work with. And I think you're watching now a prime example of how Carville, of all people, is probably a smart individual to keep his mouth shut and not really get so needlessly involved in this, because does anyone think right now what I'm thinking?
Any comments on the alleged allegation of your connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island. Yeah.
President Trump says he never visited Jeffrey Epstein's private island. Listen.
I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that Carville, who made his political career off of advising Bill Clinton, maybe shouldn't be one to say such out there ridiculous things, try to make so many accusations on this subject. I'm just saying, food for thought there. But this is a trend you so often see on the front of the Epstein stuff, which, you know, as I said, right, there's legitimate criticism, you know, there should be more transparency, all these things. But at the same time, there's a lot of just ridiculous bad faith Democrat attacks about. And Carville this week was far from alone. We even had the CNN White House reporter being forced to backtrack a little bit after she invented this claim here, claiming that J.D. Vance and other cabinet officials had a special emergency meeting last night to strategize what to do over the Epstein files, but she was forced to do damage control after the White House responded saying, "What are you talking about?" So Vance's office, as you can see, have said they deny such a meeting was taking place. As we've said publicly, there was never a supposed meeting scheduled at the vice president's residence to discuss the Epstein strategy. Any reporting to the contrary is false, according to William Martin's communication director. And she goes on here to state that despite talks of canceling the dinner, two officials said it could have taken place, though the location could change. They argue that the focus of meeting would likely be broader than solely discussing the administration's handling of the Epstein case. Oh, so what you're saying is that there was not this emergency meeting to strategize how to deal with the Epstein case. Is that what you're saying, right? Because the dinner apparently got canceled, and then when she found out the full details, it wasn't a meeting exclusively to talk about Epstein. Well, there you go. That's what happens when you so often rely on unreliable leakers. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. What do you think of Carville ending up with egg on his face? Is it time for him to retire finally? Great question. Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.